At my sister Lauren Parker's lavish engagement party, I, Olivia Reed, stood quietly in the corner, holding onto a secret no one in our family knew. I'm the youngest judge ever appointed in our district. For years, I stayed silent through the comparisons and dismissive comments, until one unexpected moment forced the truth into the open, changing everything about our family forever. I'll tell you what happened next. Let me know where you're watching from. Drop a comment, and hit subscribe if you've ever had a family member who constantly puts you down. At 32, I, Olivia Reed, had accomplished something few could claim. I was the youngest judge ever appointed in our district in over 50 years. Within legal circles, my name carried weight and respect. My colleagues saw me as firm but fair, someone who upheld justice with integrity. But there was one place where none of that seemed to matter: my own family. To them, I was still the quiet little sister, the one who stayed out of the spotlight, the one easy to overlook. Most of them didn't even know what I actually did. As far as they were concerned, I was an administrative assistant at the courthouse, a misunderstanding I never corrected, one that eventually became accepted as truth. It all started 3 years ago, during Thanksgiving at my aunt's house. I had just passed the bar exam and was working as a law clerk for Judge Wallace, one of the most respected figures in the local judicial system. When someone casually asked what I did, I said I was assisting Judge Wallace. Before I could elaborate, my sister Lauren jumped in with a smirk. "Oh yeah, Olivia answers phones and makes coffee at the courthouse. But hey, we all have to start somewhere, right?" Everyone at the table chuckled lightly and moved on. I sat there, silently stunned. Years of late nights studying, arguing mock trial cases, pushing through law school, all of it reduced to making coffee. But instead of defending myself, I said nothing. Not because I was ashamed, but because I was tired. Tired of trying to prove myself in a family that only seemed to celebrate Lauren. She had always been the center of attention, the cheerleader, the class president, the girl whose every step was met with applause. I was the quiet one, the reader, the girl who loved order and dreamed of justice. "Olivia's easy," my mom would say proudly. "Lauren just needs a bit more attention." As if needing less somehow made me matter less. The truth is, I wasn't short on achievements. I had won scholarships, graduated top of my class in law school, and landed prestigious internships. But every time I shared something I was proud of, it got overshadowed. I'd get, "That's great, honey," followed by, "Did you hear Lauren just got promoted?" Eventually, I learned it was easier to stay quiet. Not because I lacked pride, I had plenty, but because I didn't want to hear the patronizing responses, the comparisons, or the subtle dismissals. So when people assumed I was a secretary, I let them. Meanwhile, I kept rising. I became a prosecutor with an almost perfect conviction rate. I built a reputation for being fair, intelligent, and no nonsense. When Judge Wallace retired, he personally recommended me for his seat. At 30, I became the youngest judge in our district. It was a major milestone, one that was featured in legal publications and recognized across the state. But at home, nothing. No questions, no congratulations. It was like it never happened. Sometimes I wondered if I was to blame, if by staying silent, I had built this distance. But I also knew that what I wanted wasn't applause, I just wanted to be seen for who I really was. And maybe that's why I didn't correct the misunderstanding. Maybe, deep down, I wanted to see if anyone would ever care enough to ask. I kept my secret for 3 years, not out of fear, but out of hope. Hope that someone might one day look beyond the surface and see me. I never expected the truth would come out the way I did, in the most unexpected place. At the most inconvenient time, at Lauren's engagement party. From as early as I can remember, Lauren was the star of the Reed household, the shining light in our cozy Massachusetts suburb. 5 years older than me, she was always front and center, celebrated with applause and admiration, while I, Olivia, stayed quietly in the background, the easy one, the one who never caused trouble, the one who didn't need attention. Lauren was everything a proud parent could hope for: head cheerleader, lead actress in the spring play, and the girl who got into 3 top colleges with full scholarships. Whenever she accomplished something, it was an event. My mother would call relatives. My father would beam with pride, and there'd often be a dinner or a small celebration in her honor. And me? When I brought home straight A's in middle school, my mother said, "That's nice, honey," before launching into a story about Lauren's latest debate competition. I remember that moment vividly, the excitement I felt holding my perfect report card. The hope for a little recognition, only to have it fade under the weight of Lauren's latest achievement. I did try to compete. Quietly, I focused on academics, joined the debate team, and threw myself into activities I genuinely enjoyed. But it didn't matter how hard I tried, my efforts were always seen as lesser. Lauren did that too, they'd say. Or worse, Lauren was better at that. As I grew older, I came to accept a painful truth. In my family, Lauren wasn't just my sister, she was the standard. Every compliment, every comment, every expectation started with her. When Lauren was your age, or Lauren would have handled that differently. Even when I succeeded, it was filtered through the lens of how Lauren might have done it. The irony is, Lauren isn't a bad person. She's bright, charismatic, and talented, but she has always taken up so much space, not just physically, but emotionally. In every room, in every conversation, she dominated. Over time, I learned to shrink myself to avoid conflict, to stay quiet so she could shine unchallenged. My parents didn't mean to hurt me, I truly believe that. They loved both of us, but they didn't know how to show it fairly. My mom used to say, "Olivia's just so easy, we never have to worry about her." But being low maintenance doesn't mean I didn't need to be seen. I needed it, desperately. Family gatherings made the imbalance even more obvious. While Lauren was asked about her career, her love life, her travel plans, I'd get a generic, "So, how's work?" Eventually, they stopped asking even that. It was like I didn't have anything worth sharing. I remember when I got into law school, not just any school, but one of the top programs in the country. My parents organized a quiet dinner with close family. No cake, no speeches, no fanfare. But when Lauren landed a marketing internship, an unpaid one, they hosted a full-on backyard barbecue with decorations, fireworks, and dozens of guests. I got used to it. So when people mistook me for a secretary at the courthouse, I didn't even flinch anymore. I was tired of correcting them, tired of explaining. I had learned that speaking up just invited more condescension. Staying quiet was easier. Lauren didn't know the truth, not because I hid it, but because she never asked. In her mind, she was the successful one, and I was just stable. And on some level, maybe she needed it to be that way. Maybe having a non-threatening little sister helped her feel secure in her own image of perfection. But the thing about long-standing injustice is that it doesn't just fade, it festers. That quiet flame of being overlooked, minimized, and dismissed, not because I wasn't good enough, but because I wasn't loud enough, it burned inside me. I didn't need to be a star, I just wanted to be seen. That's what made Lauren's engagement party such a turning point. Not because I planned it, not because I wanted to steal her spotlight, but because, for the first time, the truth refused to stay hidden. That night, for the first time, my family truly looked at me, not as Lauren's little sister, not as the quiet one or the assistant, but as Olivia Reed, the woman they'd never really bothered to know. Lauren Parker's engagement party was exactly what everyone expected from her, perfect down to the last detail. Twinkling lights draped across the backyard, white linen-covered tables lined with champagne flutes, and floral arrangements worthy of a Pinterest board. I, Olivia Reed, arrived early to help my mother set up. As usual, quietly, behind the scenes, unnoticed. "Olivia, you're here?" my mother said, barely glancing at me as she adjusted a centerpiece. "Can you help with the drinks table?" Lauren wants everything perfect when Nathan's family arrives. That one sentence summed up most of my childhood and adult life. Lauren wants, and the whole family delivers. I was used to it. As guests trickled in, I stood near the garden with a glass of champagne in hand. Watching from the sidelines, people smiled, complimented Lauren, and asked Nathan questions. I knew who Nathan Carter was, not because of Lauren's glowing stories, but because he had stood in front of me before, in my courtroom. He'd argued a high-profile case against Bradford Pharmaceuticals under my gavel. When the sleek black BMW rolled up the driveway, Lauren stepped out like royalty. Her designer dress hugged her perfectly, and her engagement ring sparkled with every wave of her hand. Nathan followed beside her, poised, charming, and polite as she introduced him to each guest. Lauren was in her element, parading Nathan around like a trophy and dropping humble brags wherever she went. "Nathan just won a huge case," she told our grandparents. "His firm's already talking about putting him on the executive committee." I sipped my drink quietly. trying to stay in the background. Whenever someone asked about my job, I gave my rehearsed response, just admin work at the courthouse. The lie had become second nature. Then Lauren's voice rang out again, this time louder. Oh, Olivia, she said with a laugh. She's still working, what is it again? Filing papers? Answering phones? Something like that at the courthouse, right? People chuckled. Nathan's expression shifted, confusion flickered across his face. As dinner approached, Lauren kept slipping in little jabs about me. Not everyone can be a star litigator, right? Some people are made for, well, making coffee. I smiled tightly, but something in Nathan's face changed. He was clearly trying to place me. Dinner was served under string lights as Lauren raised her glass. Nathan has big news, but he's too humble to say it. So I will. She beamed. Tell them, babe. Nathan cleared his throat. Uncomfortable. It's nothing huge. I just wrapped up the Bradford Pharmaceuticals case. My grip on the glass tightened. I knew that case, because I was the judge who ruled on it. A tough, high-stakes trial. Nathan had been sharp, articulate, but ultimately, I'd handed down a fair ruling, one that made headlines in legal journals. Bradford? I said, before I could stop myself. Lauren laughed. Oh please, like you'd know anything about that. You're not even in a firm, you're in some courthouse. Right? Filing papers or something? The table went silent. My mother looked down. My father poured more wine. Pretending not to hear, I looked directly at Nathan. His eyes narrowed. Wait a minute, he said slowly. You're not an admin, are you? Everyone turned to look at me. Olivia, he asked carefully, what's your actual role at the courthouse? I took a deep breath. I had stayed silent for years. But not anymore. I'm a judge, I said clearly. I presided over the Bradford case. A collective gasp moved around the table. Silverware clinked. My father froze mid-pour. My mother went pale. Lauren's smile faltered, disbelief clouding her expression. You're what? My dad asked. She's a judge, Nathan repeated, still stunned. I've been in her courtroom at least 6 times. The silence was deafening. The same uncle who once told me, no shame in honest work, looked absolutely mortified. He'd basically told a sitting district judge that she'd find her path someday. Lauren abruptly stood up, her chair screeching against the stone patio. This is my engagement party, she snapped. And like always, you just had to make it about you. Like always? I repeated. When have I ever tried to take the spotlight? Nathan put a hand on Lauren's shoulder. That's not fair. Lauren. Oh, fair? She scoffed. What's not fair is my own fiancé knowing more about my sister than I do. What's not fair is that every time I finally get to be the center of attention, Olivia finds a way to ruin it. I stood, voice calm. Maybe if you'd ever asked what I really do, you'd know. I didn't hide it. No one ever bothered to ask. Nathan looked at me with a mix of awe and respect. For what it's worth, he said softly, you're an incredible judge. Your ruling in Bradford was spot on. I nodded, too overwhelmed to respond. Lauren stormed off, eyes wet with tears, humiliated in the way only someone used to being the star could feel. That night, the truth didn't just come out, it cracked open something deeper. For the first time, my family saw me not as Lauren's little sister, not as the quiet one or the admin, but as Olivia Reed. Someone who had quietly built something extraordinary. After I said the words, I'm a judge, at my sister's engagement party, the backyard seemed to freeze. No one moved, no one spoke. Lauren Parker, my older sister, stood motionless, champagne glass in hand, her smile frozen mid-laugh. Nathan, her fiancé, was the first to break the silence. His voice cut through the air as he processed what he'd just heard. She's a judge. She presided over the Bradford Pharmaceuticals case. I've been in her courtroom at least 6 times. Someone cleared their throat. Aunt Margaret stared, stunned. My mother had gone pale. And my father slammed his wine glass down on the wooden table with a heavy thud. You're a judge? For real? He asked. His voice a strange mix of disbelief and something else, guilt. Maybe? I nodded, calm on the outside, though my heart was pounding like a drum. I had envisioned this moment in my mind many times. But the real thing felt messier, heavier. Why didn't you ever tell us? My mother asked softly. Because no one ever asked. I replied simply. No anger, just truth. Lauren was still standing. Her face had turned a deep shade of red, from shame or rage. I couldn't tell. Then, as if something snapped inside her, she burst out. This was supposed to be my night. Why do you always have to ruin everything? I looked at her. You think telling the truth ruined your night? You let everyone believe you were just some filing clerk. She snapped. And then you dropped this surprise right in the middle of my engagement party? You've humiliated me. I didn't choose this moment. I said calmly. You're the one who kept mocking me. Who kept bringing up my so-called admin job. Who kept making sure everyone laughed at me. I was joking, she shouted, eyes glassy with emotion. Well, your jokes made me stay silent for 3 years, I said, finally letting some of the exhaustion leak into my voice. I wasn't angry, I was just tired. Tired of shrinking myself so you could shine. Nathan gently placed a hand on Lauren's arm. Babe, Olivia didn't do anything wrong. In fact, I think she's shown a lot of restraint. Lauren turned to him, hurt flashing across her face. So you're taking her side now? I'm not taking sides, Nathan said quietly. I just think, if you really listened to Olivia, maybe for the first time, you'd realize she wasn't trying to upstage you. She was just finally seen. No one spoke. My mother looked down, fiddling with the corner of her napkin. My father avoided eye contact. Lauren clenched her fists. Her voice shook. I'm going inside. I don't need to listen to any of this. She stormed off, heels clicking angrily against the patio stones. Everyone else remained seated, the air heavy with unease, and maybe a bit of shame. After most of the guests had trickled out, it was just me, my parents, and Nathan still sitting at the table. No one knew where to begin. Why did you keep this from us? My mother finally asked again, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't hide it, I said. I just stopped correcting people. After a while, it was easier to let them believe what they wanted. My father sighed. We didn't mean to overlook you. Olivia, we always said you were the easy one, the one who didn't need attention. But I can see now how wrong we were. I didn't respond. I wasn't sure what to say. The validation I had craved for so long was finally arriving, but it felt bittersweet. Like a gift that had sat in the rain too long. Nathan stood up to leave. Before walking out, he turned back to me. You didn't just reclaim your dignity tonight. You taught everyone here a lesson in humility and quiet strength. I respect you. Thank you, I said softly. Lauren just needs time, he added. I'll talk to her. I nodded. Deep down, I wasn't sure if time could fix this, or if I even wanted it to. Later that night, back at my apartment, I sat alone in the dark. The party that was supposed to celebrate my sister had somehow turned into a turning point for me. One where I was finally seen for who I was. The cost? My sister's pride. Her carefully curated spotlight cracked under the weight of one undeniable truth. But one thing was certain. I had stepped out of the shadows. And I wasn't going back. 2 days after the engagement party that turned everything upside down, things had finally quieted. I spent Sunday morning reviewing case files for the week ahead. My apartment was calm, filled only with the soft glow of sunlight through the curtains and the gentle tapping of my keyboard. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I was surprised to find Nathan Carter standing at my door. Hands in his pockets, looking slightly nervous. Nathan? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Is Lauren with you? He shook his head. No, she doesn't know I'm here. I hesitated a moment, then stepped aside. Come in. My apartment was neat and modest, not extravagant like Lauren's place. But cozy. Shelves of law books lined the walls, with a few landscape paintings to soften the space. Nathan sat down, glancing around. You live here alone? He asked. I like the quiet, I replied, pouring us both some tea. There was a silence between us, until he finally spoke. She was up all night. You know, crying, angry, confused. I've never seen Lauren like that before. I nodded, unsurprised. I didn't mean to hurt her. And I believe you, he said sincerely. Honestly, I think you showed incredible restraint. Most people wouldn't have stayed quiet about something like that for years. I gave a small, wry smile. It wasn't something I was proud of. He sighed. She just needs time. And I need to think things through too. About the relationship. About whether I'm in love with the real Lauren, or the version she's trying to be. We sat in silence again before he stood to leave. Whatever happens between me and Lauren, I want you to know, you deserve recognition. Not just for being a judge, but for the kind of person you are. I nodded, not trusting myself to say much. When the door closed behind him, I sat back down, alone, but somehow at peace for the first time in a long time. Later that afternoon, as I was organizing case files, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was Lauren. No makeup, no designer clothes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her eyes red and puffy. She looked less like the flawless image she'd always maintained, and more like the sister I used to share a room with. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice raspy. I didn't answer, just stepped aside to let her in. Lauren stood in the middle of the living room, fidgeting with her hands. "Nathan told me he came by." I didn't stop him. I knew he needed answers. I stayed quiet. She sat down at the edge of the couch, looking uneasy. "I don't know where to start," she said softly. "Try with the truth," I said. She let out a tired laugh. "I thought I had to be perfect all the time. Mom loved showing me off. Dad was proud when I looked the part. And you were always the smart one. Independent, unshakable." I looked at her. "And you thought you had to shine in order to be loved?" She nodded. "When you got praise for your grades, I got compliments for how I looked. When you won scholarships, I made up stories about promotions and projects. Somewhere along the way, everything became a competition. I don't know when it started," I admitted, "but I got tired of it. I never wanted to compete. I just wanted to be seen." Lauren dropped her gaze. "You probably hate me for the way I treated you, for the lies, the comments." "I don't hate you," I said honestly, "but I do feel sad. Because if we'd just talked like this years ago, things might have been different." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable, just quiet. "I'm going to see a therapist," she said. "I need to understand myself better, figure out how to stop measuring my worth by comparison." "You just did something incredibly brave," I told her. Lauren stood to leave. At the door, she turned back to look at me. "I'm proud of you, Olivia. I really am. That's part of what made all this so hard for me." "Because I'm a judge?" I asked. "Because you don't have to prove anything. And yet people notice you anyway." I stood in the doorway as she left, feeling something lift from my shoulders. It wasn't closure, not yet. But maybe it was a beginning. Things didn't change overnight after our conversation. There were still quiet moments, unspoken words, and confused glances at family gatherings. But something had undeniably shifted, not loudly or dramatically, but with a quiet weight that felt real. A few weeks after the engagement party, Lauren and Nathan officially announced they were postponing their wedding. There was no drama, no tears, just a short, respectful email sent to family and friends, explaining they needed more time to better understand themselves and each other. I wasn't surprised. Lauren had started therapy for the first time in her life. She stopped clinging to perfection or hiding behind a confident mask. She began speaking openly about her insecurities, not only to me and Nathan, but to herself. As for me, I made a decision too. I would stop hiding. No more nodding politely when someone assumed I was just an assistant. No more letting people believe whatever they wanted because it was easier. Now, when I introduced myself as Judge Olivia Reed, it wasn't to impress anyone, it was simply the truth. And that was enough. Even my parents started changing, awkwardly, slowly, but with real effort. At family dinners, they began acknowledging both their daughters. If my mom mentioned Lauren's progress in therapy, my dad would bring up a case I had presided over. They asked questions with genuine curiosity, not just out of obligation. Sometimes they overcorrected, and Lauren and I would exchange amused glances. At one dinner, I mentioned being invited to publish a legal commentary, and my mom immediately turned to Lauren and asked, "And how's your progress in therapy going, sweetie?" Lauren rolled her eyes and smiled at me. "Mom, you don't have to balance every conversation like a scale. Just be honest." We both laughed, a real laugh. Not forced, not competitive, just two sisters finally learning how to coexist. I began truly living as myself, not as the version of me others were comfortable with. I went to work with calm confidence, stood behind the bench with pride, and came home to my quiet apartment without feeling like something was missing. I read, cooked, took long walks, and enjoyed sunsets from my window, all without guilt. I also started opening up to others, to old friends, to colleagues, and to young law students. I agreed to join a mentorship program at my alma mater. During one Q&A session, a first-year student shyly raised her hand and asked, "Have you ever felt like you had to dim your light so others wouldn't feel threatened by your success?" I looked at her and smiled. Yes, for a long time, but eventually I realized, dimming your light doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help the people who might be inspired by you. And it doesn't even help those you're trying to protect. She nodded, eyes lighting up, and I felt something shift in her, the way it had shifted in me months earlier. I had come a long way, from the girl who used to shrink into the corner of the room, to the woman unafraid to share her voice. One spring evening, Lauren and I sat at a small cafe near my apartment. No competition, no comparison, just two sisters, finally being real. I remember when we were kids. And you always got the lead in school plays. I teased, and I was cast as the pine tree. Lauren laughed, and now the pine tree became a judge. Who saw that coming? We both burst out laughing. It was light, honest, and healing. The kind of laugh that untangles years of tension in a single breath. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be perfect. There would be setbacks, awkward moments, old habits creeping in, but for the first time, we had a chance to rebuild, on truth, not roles, on connection, not performance. No more masks, no more shrinking or performing. Just real people, living real lives, and learning how to truly love each other.